Maya Chen pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation deck window, watching the swirling purple nebula stretch across the void of space. The research station Horizon's Edge had been her home for 3 months now, ever since her acceptance into the xenobiology program. At 19, she was the youngest researcher aboard, something her colleagues never let her forget. The station orbited Kepler 442b, a planet that had shown promising signs of ancient civilization. Her job was simple but tedious: catalog mineral samples, analyze atmospheric readings, and file reports that nobody seemed to read. It wasn't the adventure she had dreamed of when she left Earth. A low rumble echoed through the station's hull, making the lights flicker. Maya frowned and checked her tablet. No scheduled supply ships were due for another week. The rumble came again, deeper this time, followed by what sounded almost like scratching. "Attention all personnel," Dr. Harrison's voice crackled over the intercom. "We have an unidentified object approaching the station. All non-essential staff report to the emergency stations immediately." Maya's heart raced as she grabbed her emergency kit and headed toward the designated safe room. The corridors buzzed with activity as scientists and technicians hurried past her. Through another window, she caught a glimpse of something massive moving in the darkness beyond the station's lights. The safe room was cramped and filled with nervous chatter. Maya found herself squeezed between Dr. Patel, the chief geologist, and Lieutenant Torres from security. The scratching sound grew louder, now accompanied by what sounded like heavy breathing. "What do you think it is?" whispered Dr. Patel, his normally steady hands shaking slightly. Before anyone could answer, the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Then they heard it, a voice speaking in perfect English despite the alien accent that made each word sound like wind through a canyon. "Please, I mean no harm. I have been. So long without. Please, someone listen." The room fell silent. Maya felt goosebumps rise on her arms. The voice was ancient, tired, and filled with a desperate sadness that seemed to reach into her chest and squeeze her heart. Dr. Harrison's voice came over the intercom again, tighter now. "The entity appears to be attempting communication. Security teams are in position. Nobody is to approach the docking bays without authorization." But Maya found herself thinking about that voice. There had been something in it that reminded her of her grandmother during her final days, when illness had left her weak but determined to share her stories one last time. It was the sound of someone who had been alone too long. The scratching stopped suddenly, replaced by a different sound, softer, almost like crying. Maya stood up, ignoring the protests from those around her. "Where are you going?" Dr. Patel grabbed her arm. "Harrison said to stay here." "That thing is in pain," Maya said, surprising herself with how certain she sounded. "Did you hear it? It's not trying to hurt us. It's asking for help." "Maya, don't be ridiculous," Lieutenant Torres stood up. "We don't know what it is or what it wants. It could be some kind of trick." But Maya was already moving toward the door. Something deep in her gut told her that whoever was out there needed help, not weapons pointed at them. She had always trusted her instincts, and they had never led her wrong before. The corridors were empty now, lit only by the red emergency lighting. Maya made her way toward the main docking bay, following the sound of that soft, mournful crying. Her footsteps echoed in the metal hallways, and she found herself holding her breath every few steps to listen. As she got closer to the docking bay, she began to smell something strange, not unpleasant, but definitely alien. It reminded her of thunderstorms and old books with an underlying scent like warm stone. The docking bay doors were sealed, but Maya knew the override codes from her safety training. She hesitated for only a moment before entering the sequence. The massive doors began to slide open with a mechanical whir. What she saw took her breath away. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a small spacecraft. Its body was long and serpentine, covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. 4 powerful legs ended in claws that had left the scratches in the station's hull. Massive wings were folded against its back, and its head was distinctly dragon-like, with intelligent golden eyes that fixed on Maya the moment she appeared. But it was the condition of the creature that made Maya's heart break. Its scales were dull and patchy in places, its magnificent wings torn and scarred. Its body was gaunt, and she could see the outline of its ribs through its hide. This was a being that had been suffering for a very long time. The dragon, for that's what it clearly was, despite being impossible, lowered its great head until it was level with Maya. When it spoke, she could feel the vibration of its voice in her bones. "Little one," it said, its voice like distant thunder, "you are brave to come to me. I am called Zephyros, though I have not spoken my name aloud in many cycles of your star." Maya found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "I'm Maya. Are you hurt?" The dragon's eyes closed for a moment, and when they opened again, Maya saw centuries of weariness in them. "Not hurt in the way you mean, young Maya, but I am starving. I have been starving for so very long." "Starving?" Maya stepped closer, her fear completely replaced by concern. "What do you eat?" "We have food stores, water recyclers." Zephyros made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was too sad to be truly amused. "Not food as you understand it, little one. I consume something your people possess in abundance, something that has sustained my kind across the stars for millennia." "What?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. The dragon's golden eyes seemed to look right through her, seeing something she couldn't understand. "Stories," Zephyros whispered. "I feed on stories, on the dreams and hopes and fears that make your kind so beautifully alive. And I have been alone in the void with nothing but silence and emptiness for 300 of your years." Maya felt tears she didn't realize she'd been holding back run down her cheeks. The most magnificent creature she had ever seen was dying of loneliness, and somehow, impossibly, she might be the only one who could help. Maya wiped the tears from her eyes and stepped even closer to the massive dragon. Zephyros watched her with those ancient golden eyes, and she could see hope flickering in them like candlelight in a dark room. "Stories," she repeated, trying to wrap her mind around the concept. "You actually eat stories?" "Not consume as you would food," Zephyros explained, his voice growing stronger now that someone was listening. "I absorb the emotional essence of narratives, the life force that humans pour into their tales. Your species creates stories like stars create light, constantly, brilliantly, without even realizing the power you wield." Maya thought about all the books she had read, all the movies she had watched, all the bedtime stories her grandmother had told her. "And you've been without any of that for 300 years? The dragon's head drooped slightly. "My homeworld was destroyed in a war I no longer remember clearly. I escaped in what you might call a hibernation pod, but it malfunctioned. I drifted through space, sometimes conscious, sometimes not, growing weaker as the centuries passed. When I finally sensed your station, I barely had the strength to approach. But why didn't you just ask for help immediately? Why all the scratching and hiding?" Zephyros's expression grew pained. "The last time I encountered other species, they saw only a monster. A creature to be feared, captured, studied. I have learned to be careful." Maya understood. She had seen how the security team reacted, how even the scientists had immediately assumed the worst. Humans had a terrible habit of shooting first and asking questions later when faced with the unknown. "Well, you found the right person," Maya said firmly. "I have more stories than you could handle. But first, are you sure it's safe?" "I won't hurt you or drain your life force or anything." The dragon's eyes crinkled in what Maya realized was amusement. "Young Maya, I could no more harm you through story sharing than you could harm the sun by looking at it. In fact, humans grow stronger through the telling of tales. It is one of your species' greatest gifts." Maya heard footsteps echoing in the corridor behind her. The security team was coming, and she knew they wouldn't be as understanding as she was. "Look, we don't have much time before my colleagues show up with weapons," she said quickly. "How does this work? Do I just start talking?" "Simply tell me a story that matters to you," Zephyros said. "One that carries your emotions, your experiences. The more real it is to you, the more nourishing it will be for me." Maya thought for a moment, then began to speak. "When I was 7 years old, my grandmother got very sick. The doctor said she wouldn't live much longer, and my parents wanted to put her in a hospital where she could be more comfortable. But she refused. She said she wanted to spend her last days telling me stories." As Maya spoke, she noticed something remarkable happening. The dragon's scales began to shimmer more brightly, and the dullness in his eyes started to fade. He was literally drinking in her words, absorbing not just the story but the love and sadness and hope that came with it. She told me about her childhood in China, about coming to America with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She told me about meeting my grandfather, about the struggles they faced, about the joy they found in simple things. Every night for 3 months she would tell me stories until I fell asleep. Zephyros's breathing had become deeper, more regular. Some of the gauntness was leaving his features, and Maya could swear his scales were beginning to regain their luster. The night before she died, she told me the most important story of all. She said that every person carries thousands of stories inside them, and that when we share them, we become immortal. Not our bodies, but our experiences, our love, our wisdom. She made me promise to always remember that stories are the most powerful magic humans possess. Your grandmother was wise, Zephyros murmured, his voice now rich and warm instead of weak and raspy. She understood something many of your kind forget. Continue, please. I can feel strength returning to me with every word. Maya was about to go on when she heard Dr. Harrison's voice shouting from the corridor. Maya, step away from that creature immediately. We have armed security teams in position. Just a few more minutes, Maya called back, not taking her eyes off Zephyros. It's not dangerous. It just needs help. Maya Chen, that is a direct order. Fall back now. Zephyros's eyes flashed with worry. They fear me. Perhaps I should leave before— No, Maya said firmly. You're starving, and I'm not going to let you drift off into space again. Let me handle them. She turned toward the corridor entrance and raised her voice. Dr. Harrison, if you come in here with weapons, you're going to make the biggest mistake of your scientific career. This being is sentient, intelligent, and in need of medical assistance. Medical assistance? Dr. Harrison appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 security officers with plasma rifles. His face was pale with fear and anger. Maya, get away from that thing before it kills you. His name is Zephyros, Maya said calmly. He's been alone in space for 300 years and he's dying. Not from disease or injury, but from starvation. And before you ask, no, he doesn't eat people. He feeds on stories. Dr. Harrison blinked. Stories? The emotional content of narratives, Zephyros said, speaking directly to the research team for the first time. His voice was stronger now, more resonant. I mean no harm to you or your kind. Indeed, I owe young Maya my life. She has given me the first sustenance I have tasted in centuries. The security officers kept their weapons trained on the dragon, but Maya could see doubt creeping into their expressions. Dr. Harrison took a tentative step forward, his scientific curiosity beginning to overcome his fear. You're saying you're some kind of story vampire? Dr. Harrison asked. I prefer to think of myself as a repository of narrative, Zephyros replied with dignity. My people were the keepers of stories across the galaxy. We preserved the tales of civilizations, ensuring that their experiences would never be truly lost. In return, we drew sustenance from the act of preservation. Maya turned back to Zephyros. Your people? Are there others? The dragon's expression grew sad again. I am the last as far as I know. When my world died, I carried with me the stories of 1,000 different species, but with no one to share them with, they began to fade, and I began to starve. Dr. Harrison lowered his tablet, his scientific mind clearly racing. This is incredible. A symbiotic relationship between species based on narrative exchange. The implications for xenobiology, for understanding consciousness itself. The implications can wait, Maya interrupted. Right now, Zephyros needs our help, and I think he has something to offer us too. She looked up at the dragon. You said you carry the stories of 1,000 species. Stories that would otherwise be lost forever. Zephyros nodded solemnly. Tales of love and loss, of discovery and adventure, of wisdom gained through countless lifetimes. I have been the keeper of galactic memory for millennia. Maya smiled, feeling pieces of a plan falling into place. Dr. Harrison, imagine what we could learn. Imagine the stories we could preserve and share. This isn't just first contact. This is a chance to become part of something bigger. The research station suddenly felt very small, and Maya realized that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. Dr. Harrison stared at Zephyros for a long moment, then slowly gestured for the security officers to lower their weapons. Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her as the tension in the docking bay decreased. This is unprecedented, Dr. Harrison murmured, pulling out his recording device. We need to document everything. Maya, how exactly did you know to approach it? Him? I listened, Maya said simply. He was asking for help, not threatening us. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Zephyros shifted his massive form, settling more comfortably on the docking bay floor. Already Maya could see the improvement in his condition. His scales had regained some of their color-shifting shimmer, and his breathing was stronger. but he was still clearly weak. "Dr. Harrison," the dragon said, his voice carrying an ancient formality, "I understand your caution. In my travels across the galaxy, I have learned that first contact is rarely smooth, but I assure you I pose no threat to your people. Indeed, I hope to offer you something of great value." "The stories of other civilizations," Dr. Harrison said, his scientific excitement growing. "You could share knowledge that would advance our understanding of the universe by centuries." "More than knowledge," Zephyros replied. "Understanding, wisdom, the accumulated experiences of species you cannot imagine. But there is something else, something more immediate that I can offer." Maya moved closer, intrigued. "What do you mean?" The dragon's golden eyes fixed on her. "Young Maya, in saving my life, you have done more than show kindness to a stranger. You have demonstrated the unique gift that makes humanity so special among the stars." "Which is?" "Compassion across species barriers," Zephyros explained. "Most intelligent species I have encountered are capable of empathy within their own kind. Some can extend it to similar species. But humans can feel compassion for anything that suffers, regardless of how alien it might be. This is extraordinarily rare," Dr. Harrison frowned. "You're saying other species aren't capable of interspecies empathy?" "Oh, they are capable," Zephyros said. "But it requires conscious effort, logical decision-making. For humans, it appears to be instinctive." Maya saw a suffering being and immediately wanted to help, despite my alien appearance and the potential danger. Maya felt a flush of embarrassment. It wasn't that special. Anyone would have done the same thing, would they? Zephyros asked gently. "Your colleague's first instinct was to point weapons at me. They are not evil or wrong, they are being sensibly cautious. But you heard pain in my voice and responded to it immediately." Dr. Harrison was taking notes frantically. "This compassion trait, you've observed it in other humans?" "I have been watching your species for some time," Zephyros admitted. "Your broadcasts reach far into space, carrying your stories across the void. I have seen humans risk their lives to save animals they have never encountered before. I have watched you care for the elderly, the sick, the different. Even when it costs you resources you can barely spare." Maya thought about animal rescue videos, about people who dedicated their lives to helping strangers, about her grandmother caring for injured birds. "But surely other species do the same." "Some do, but not with your consistency or intensity. The Kithara are logical and fair, but they help only when it serves a greater purpose. The Valdris are deeply emotional, but only toward their own clan structures. The Nexari are incredibly advanced, but they view suffering as a natural part of existence to be accepted, not alleviated." "You speak as if you know these species personally," Dr. Harrison observed. Zephyros's expression grew distant. "I was their story keeper for millennia. I knew their hearts as well as their histories. And in all my travels I have never encountered a species quite like yours." Maya sat down on a nearby supply crate, processing this information. "So what does this mean for us? For humanity?" "It means," Zephyros said, his voice growing stronger and more excited, "that humans may be the key to something the galaxy has been missing for eons. True unity between species." Dr. Harrison looked up from his notes. "I'm not sure I follow." The dragon shifted, his massive head moving closer to the group. "For millions of years, different species across the galaxy have existed in isolation or conflict. Trade exists, treaties exist, but true understanding, true cooperation, it is incredibly rare. Each species remains locked in their own perspective, their own way of experiencing reality." "But humans are different?" Maya asked. "Humans have the ability to understand and empathize with completely alien viewpoints," Zephyros explained. "Your literature is full of stories told from the perspective of animals, artificial intelligences, even inanimate objects. You can imagine yourselves into almost any consciousness." Maya thought about some of her favorite books, stories told from the viewpoint of robots, dolphins, even trees. She had never considered it unusual. "This adaptability," Zephyros continued, "combined with your instinctive compassion, makes you natural ambassadors between species. You could be the bridge that finally brings the galaxy together." Dr. Harrison set down his tablet. "That's a beautiful idea, but Earth is barely capable of space travel beyond our own solar system. We're hardly ready to become galactic ambassadors." "Not yet," Zephyros agreed. "But you could be. I carry within me the accumulated knowledge of countless civilizations. Technologies, philosophies, art forms, scientific discoveries. all preserved in story form. I could share this knowledge with humanity, help you take your place among the stars. Maya felt her heart racing. In exchange for what? Stories, Zephyros said simply. Human stories. Your unique perspective, your experiences, your dreams and fears and hopes. You would feed my spirit while I feed your minds. A true symbiosis, but why us specifically? Dr. Harrison asked. If you can share this knowledge with any species, why choose humanity? Zephyros looked directly at Maya. Because a 19-year-old human girl saw a starving alien and immediately wanted to help, without thought of reward or recognition. Because your species creates stories that celebrate kindness, courage, and love above power or dominance. Because in all my millennia of existence, I have never felt as welcomed and understood as I do in this moment. Maya felt tears in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of possibility rather than sadness. She looked around the docking bay, at Dr. Harrison scribbling notes, at the security officers who had lowered their weapons completely, at this magnificent being who had traveled across the galaxy and found hope in her simple act of kindness. There's something else, she said slowly. If you share these stories with us, if you teach us about other species, we could do more than just learn from them. We could make sure they're never truly lost. Zephyros's eyes brightened. You understand perfectly, young Maya. Stories are immortality. As long as someone remembers and retells them, the beings who lived them continue to exist in some form. Dr. Harrison stood up suddenly. I need to contact Earth immediately. The scientific council, the government. Everyone needs to know about this. This could change everything for our species. Carefully, Zephyros warned. I have seen species destroyed by knowledge they were not ready to receive. Humanity must choose its path wisely. Maya stood up as well, feeling the weight of possibility settling on her shoulders. What do you need from us right now? To recover your strength? More stories, Zephyros said with something that might have been a smile. All the stories you can share. And in return, I will begin to share the wonders I have collected across the stars. Maya grinned, feeling more alive than she had since leaving Earth. I hope you're ready for this, because humans have a lot of stories to tell. Over the next 3 days, the research station transformed into something entirely different. Word had spread quickly through the crew, and despite Dr. Harrison's attempts to maintain some semblance of normal operations, everyone found reasons to visit the docking bay where Zephyros had made his temporary home. Maya had appointed herself as the dragon's primary caretaker, bringing him stories every few hours. She told him about her childhood, her dreams of space exploration, her fears about being so far from home. In return, Zephyros shared glimpses of the galaxy she could barely imagine. The crystal singers of Melodia, he told her during one session, his voice now fully restored to its rich, resonant tone, were beings made of living sound. They built cities that existed only when they sang them into existence. Each morning the entire population would wake and sing their world back to life. Maya sat cross-legged in front of him, completely mesmerized. What happened to them? They discovered silence, Zephyros said sadly, a cosmic phenomenon that dampened all vibrations in their star system. Unable to sing, their cities faded away like morning mist. But their music lives on in the stories they shared with me. Dr. Harrison approached with his usual tablet and recording equipment. Maya, I hate to interrupt, but I've received word from Earth. The Scientific Council is sending a diplomatic team, along with some of our best xenobiologists and linguists. How long until they arrive? Maya asked. 2 weeks, assuming they can get approval for a fast transport. Zephyros raised his great head. Dr. Harrison, I sense concern in your voice. What troubles you? Dr. Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Well, there are political considerations. Some people on Earth are excited about the potential for technological advancement. Others are worried about the security implications. And then there are those who think the whole thing might be some kind of elaborate hoax. They think I'm fake. Zephyros sounded amused rather than offended. The idea of a story-eating space dragon is rather hard to believe, Dr. Harrison admitted. Even with our documentation, there are skeptics. Maya frowned. What kind of political considerations? Dr. Harrison looked uncomfortable. There are questions about who has the right to negotiate with you, what Earth's position should be, whether this information should be shared freely or controlled. The usual human complications. Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried centuries of sadness. I have seen this before. When the Nexari first discovered hyperspace travel, they spent 50 years arguing about who should be allowed to use it. By the time they reached a consensus, 3 of their colony worlds had been destroyed by the stellar plague that hyperspace travel could have helped them escape. Humans do tend to overcomplicate things, Maya said with a sigh. Perhaps, Zephyros said thoughtfully, it is time for me to share a particular story with you, one that might help your people understand what they are truly facing. Dr. Harrison readied his recording equipment. I'm listening. Long ago there was a species called the Architects. They were brilliant engineers who could reshape entire planets to their will. They built wonders that spanned solar systems, cities that floated in the void of space, gardens on the surfaces of stars. Maya leaned forward. They sound incredible. They were. And they were also utterly alone. In all their magnificence, they had never learned to truly communicate with other species. They saw themselves as so advanced that they could not imagine learning anything from lesser beings. What happened to them? Dr. Harrison asked, though his tone suggested he suspected the answer. They encountered a problem they could not engineer their way out of. Zephyros continued. A quantum virus that began eating away at the fabric of space-time itself. It started small in uninhabited systems, but it was growing. The Architects threw all their technology at it, but nothing worked. Did they ask for help? Maya asked. Eventually, yes. But by then it was too late. They had spent so long viewing other species as inferior that when they finally reached out, no one trusted them. No one believed they were truly asking for help rather than trying to manipulate or control. Dr. Harrison set down his tablet. They died alone. They died alone, Zephyros confirmed. And with them died technologies and knowledge that could have benefited the entire galaxy. I was there for their final days, collecting their stories as their worlds dissolved into quantum foam. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying that's what could happen to us? If we can't get past our politics and paranoia? I am saying, Zephyros replied gently, that every species faces this choice. Will they reach outward with open hands? Or will they clutch their secrets close until their fingers are too stiff to let go? Dr. Harrison stood up and began pacing. But the Earth delegation will be here soon. Once they see you for themselves, once they understand what you're offering. Dr. Harrison, Zephyros interrupted. What exactly do you think they will want from me? The question hung in the air for a moment. Maya felt a sinking feeling in her stomach as she realized what the dragon was getting at. They'll want technology, she said quietly. Weapons, medical advances, ways to make Earth stronger and more powerful. And they will want to control access to that technology, Zephyros added. They will want to ensure that their enemies do not benefit from my knowledge. Dr. Harrison stopped pacing. Are you saying you won't share your knowledge with us? I am saying that knowledge shared in fear becomes a weapon. Knowledge shared in love becomes wisdom. Zephyros's golden eyes fixed on Maya. Your young friend here understands this instinctively. She approached me with compassion, not calculation. She wanted to help, not to gain advantage. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. What are you asking me to do? I am asking you to help me show your people what they could become, Zephyros said. Not just more powerful, but more connected. Not just more advanced, but more wise. How? Dr. Harrison asked. Zephyros shifted his position, bringing his head closer to the small group of humans. I want to share with you the most important story in my collection. The story of a species that learned to transcend their limitations not through technology, but through understanding. Which species? Maya asked. Humanity, Zephyros said with a slight smile. A story that has not yet been written, but one that I believe is possible. Maya blinked. You want to tell us a story about our own future? I want to tell you a story about what humanity could become, based on what I have observed of your potential. Consider it a preview of possibilities. Dr. Harrison looked skeptical. You can see the future? I cannot see the future, Zephyros clarified. But I have seen many species face the same crossroads that humanity now approaches. Some choose fear and isolation. Others choose trust and connection. The outcomes are remarkably predictable. Maya stood up, feeling a sudden surge of determination. Tell us the story, and then help us figure out how to make it real. Zephyros's eyes crinkled with what Maya now recognized as his equivalent of a smile. Very well, young Maya, but this story comes with a price. What kind of price? Dr. Harrison asked warily. The price of all meaningful stories, Zephyros replied. Once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you understand what humanity could become, you will bear the responsibility of helping your species choose that path. Maya looked at Dr. Harrison, then back at the magnificent creature before them. She thought about her grandmother's words about stories being the most powerful magic humans possessed. She thought about the architects dying alone with their secrets. She thought about the possibility of a galaxy united not by force or politics but by understanding and compassion. Tell us the story, she said firmly. We're ready to hear it. Zephyros closed his ancient eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, they seemed to glow with an inner light. The air in the docking bay felt charged with possibility, as if reality itself was holding its breath. In the year that your people call 2157, Zephyros began, his voice taking on the cadence of a true storyteller, humanity took its first steps beyond the borders of your solar system. But this was not the crude expansion that many species attempt, driven by hunger for resources or fear of extinction. This was something different. Maya felt herself being drawn into the story as if it were happening around her. She could almost see the scenes Zephyros described playing out in the air before them. The breakthrough came not from humanity's scientists or engineers, but from its poets and storytellers. They had learned, through their friendship with a certain galactic keeper of tales, that the universe itself was structured like a vast narrative. Each star was a word, each planet a paragraph, each life a story contributing to an endless cosmic tale. Dr. Harrison leaned forward, his scientific mind wrestling with the implications. You're saying the universe is literally made of stories? Not literally, Zephyros clarified without breaking the flow of his narrative. But the patterns that govern reality, the quantum fluctuations, the gravitational dances of galaxies, the evolution of consciousness itself, they follow narrative structures. Beginning, middle, end, conflict, resolution, transformation. Maya felt goosebumps rising on her arms. And humans figured out how to read these patterns? More than read them, Zephyros continued. They learned to write them. The first human starships were not powered by fusion or antimatter, but by collective storytelling. Crews would gather in specially designed chambers and tell stories together, weaving narratives so powerful that they could actually bend space-time. That's impossible, Dr. Harrison protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Zephyros asked gently. You have already seen that stories can sustain life across the void. Why should they not also be capable of transcending the physical laws that govern lesser matter? Maya closed her eyes and tried to imagine it. Ships powered by imagination. Navigation by narrative. We could go anywhere, be anything. The first human ship to use this technology was called the Storyteller. Zephyros continued. Its maiden voyage was to the Andromeda Galaxy, a journey that should have taken millions of years. But the crew told such a compelling story of reunion, of finding lost family among the stars, that space itself contracted to make their narrative possible. They arrived in 3 days. Maya's breath caught. What did they find there? The survivors of my people, Zephyros said softly. 3 other keepers who had managed to escape our world's destruction, but had been trapped in Andromeda, slowly starving as I had been. The humans found them not through technology or luck, but because their story required it. The universe conspired to make their tale of rescue come true. Dr. Harrison was frantically taking notes, though Maya could see he was struggling to reconcile what he was hearing with everything he thought he knew about physics. The reunion of the keepers marked the beginning of what became known as the Great Convergence, Zephyros continued. For the first time in galactic history, different species began to truly understand each other. Not just their languages or cultures, but their deepest dreams and fears. How? Maya asked. Through humanity's gift for empathy, humans became the galaxy's translators, not of words, but of experiences. They could listen to the quantum songs of the crystal singers and retell them as emotions that other species could understand. They could take the mathematical poetry of the Nexari and transform it into stories that spoke to any heart. Maya could see it in her mind, humans serving as bridges between alien minds, helping species that had been isolated for millennia finally connect with each other. Within 50 years, the galaxy had changed completely, Zephyros went on. Wars that had raged for centuries ended not through conquest but through understanding. Species that had never been able to communicate discovered they shared similar hopes for their children's futures. The Kithara learned compassion from human stories. while humans learned logic from Kithara mathematics. It sounds too good to be true, Dr. Harrison said, though Maya could hear the longing in his voice. Not too good, Zephyros replied. Simply good. There were still conflict, still challenges, but they were resolved through conversation rather than violence, through shared stories rather than competing monologues. Maya stood up and walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars. What role did Earth play in all of this? Earth became the cultural heart of the galaxy, Zephyros said. Not its ruler or commander, but its storyteller. Beings from across the cosmos would travel there to share their tales and learn new ones. Your planet became a living library of galactic experience. And the technology? Dr. Harrison asked. What happened to human advancement? It advanced beyond your current dreams, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of building larger weapons or faster ships, humanity learned to create technologies of connection. They developed devices that could translate not just words but emotions across species barriers. They built machines that could preserve the essence of a being's consciousness in story form, ensuring true immortality. Maya turned back to face the dragon. You're describing a utopia. I am describing a possibility, Zephyros corrected. One path among many that lies before your species. But it is a path that requires a choice, and that choice must be made soon. What choice? Dr. Harrison asked. Zephyros's expression grew serious. In exactly 9 days, the delegation from Earth will arrive. They will come with questions about technology, about power, about advantage over your species' enemies. They will want to know what I can give them to make humanity stronger. Maya felt a chill of understanding. And if we give them what they expect to want, then humanity will follow the path of the architects, Zephyros said sadly. You will become powerful, but you will remain alone. You will develop technologies that put you beyond the reach of other species, but you will also put yourselves beyond the reach of connection and growth. Dr. Harrison set down his tablet with shaking hands. What are you asking us to do? I am asking you to help me show them a different path, Zephyros replied. To demonstrate that the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to destroy or dominate, but the ability to understand and connect. Maya felt the weight of the moment settling around them. How do we do that? By doing what humans do best, Zephyros said with a gentle smile. Tell them a story, but not just any story. A story so compelling, so full of hope and possibility, that it changes their hearts as well as their minds. What story? Dr. Harrison asked. The story of what happened here, Zephyros replied. The story of a young woman who saw a suffering alien and chose compassion over fear. The story of how that single act of kindness opened the door to wonders beyond imagination. Maya looked at the magnificent being before her, then at Dr. Harrison with his notes and recordings, then out at the stars that suddenly seemed full of infinite possibility. The story isn't finished yet, she said quietly. No, Zephyros agreed. The ending depends on the choices your people make in the next 9 days. But I have hope, young Maya, because I have seen what humans are capable of when they choose love over fear. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the future hanging in the balance around them. Then let's make sure we give them the right ending to choose. The delegation from Earth arrived exactly 9 days later, just as Zephyros had predicted. Maya watched from the observation deck as 3 sleek ships approached the station, their hulls gleaming with the insignia of the United Earth Government, the Scientific Council, and the Defense Ministry. Over the past week, word of Zephyros had spread far beyond the research station. The entire galaxy seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see how humanity would respond to this unprecedented opportunity. Maya had spent most of that time with the dragon, sharing more stories and learning about the delicate balance that held civilizations together. Dr. Harrison appeared beside her at the window, looking nervous. The delegation leader is Admiral Chen. No relation as far as I know. She's accompanied by Dr. Reeves from the Scientific Council and General Morrison from Defense. Maya nodded but didn't take her eyes off the approaching ships. How do you think they'll react to him? I honestly don't know, Dr. Harrison admitted. The reports we've sent have been difficult for them to accept. In the docking bay, Zephyros waited patiently. Over the past 9 days, he had transformed completely. His scales now shimmered with an oily rainbow of colors. His wings had healed and his eyes burned with renewed vitality. The stories Maya and the station crew had shared with him had literally brought him back to life. The delegation's shuttle docked with a mechanical clang that echoed through the station. Maya and Dr. Harrison made their way to the reception area, where they were soon joined by three figures in crisp, military and scientific uniforms. Admiral Chen was a stern-looking woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and calculating eyes. Dr. Reeves appeared to be about Dr. Harrison's age, with the eager expression of a scientist who had been promised impossible discoveries. General Morrison was younger than Maya had expected, probably in his early 40s, with the kind of alert posture that suggested he was ready for trouble. "Dr. Harrison," Admiral Chen said without preamble, "I've read your reports, but I have to say they strain credibility. A space dragon that feeds on stories? It sounds like something out of a children's book." "I understand your skepticism," Dr. Harrison replied carefully. "Perhaps it would be best if you met Zephyros yourself." "Zephyros?" General Morrison raised an eyebrow. "You've named it?" "He named himself," Maya interjected, stepping forward. "Admiral Chen, I'm Maya Chen. I was the first to make contact." Admiral Chen studied Maya with sharp eyes. "You're very young to be involved in first contact protocols." "I wasn't following protocols," Maya said honestly. "I was following my instincts." Dr. Reeves leaned forward eagerly. "Ms. Chen, your reports mention that this being possesses technology far beyond our current capabilities. Is that accurate?" Maya exchanged a glance with Dr. Harrison. This was exactly what Zephyros had warned them about, the immediate focus on what humanity could gain rather than what they could give. "He possesses knowledge," Maya said carefully. "But sharing it isn't that simple." "Why not?" General Morrison asked. "If this creature is truly benevolent, why wouldn't it want to help advance human civilization?" "Maybe we should let him answer that question himself," Maya suggested. "He's waiting in docking bay 3. The group made their way through the station's corridors, the delegation members asking rapid-fire questions about Zephyros's capabilities, his biology, his technology. Maya found herself growing more worried with each question. They were approaching this exactly as the dragon had feared they would. When they reached the docking bay, Maya activated the door controls. The massive doors slid open to reveal Zephyros in all his magnificent glory. The delegation members stopped dead in their tracks. "Holy," General Morrison breathed, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "Greetings," Zephyros said, his voice carrying its usual dignified warmth. "I am honored to meet representatives of humanity's leaders." Admiral Chen recovered her composure first, though Maya could see she was shaken. "You're larger than I expected." "And you are smaller than I expected," Zephyros replied with gentle humor. "But size has little to do with the magnitude of one's spirit." Dr. Reeves stepped forward, his scientific excitement overcoming his shock. "The technology required for you to travel between stars to survive in space for centuries. It must be incredible. Could you share the principles behind your propulsion systems?" "I do not use propulsion systems as you understand them," Zephyros replied. "I travel through the power of narrative connection. When I need to be somewhere, I tell myself the story of how I arrived there." General Morrison frowned. "That's not a real explanation." "You can't travel through space by telling stories, can't I?" Zephyros asked mildly. "Young Maya, would you like to tell our guests about your grandmother?" Maya understood immediately what he was asking for. "My grandmother used to say that stories could take you anywhere instantly. When she told me about her childhood in China, I could see it, smell it, feel it. For the duration of the story, I was there with her." "Metaphorically," Admiral Chen said impatiently. "Perhaps," Zephyros agreed. "But what is the difference between metaphorical travel and physical travel when you exist on a scale that encompasses entire galaxies? Distance becomes a matter of perspective." Dr. Reeves was taking frantic notes. "The implications for physics for our understanding of space-time." "Dr. Reeves," Zephyros interrupted gently, "what is it you truly want from me?" "Knowledge," Dr. Reeves said immediately. "Technology, the secrets of faster-than-light travel, advanced materials, energy systems beyond our imagination." "And you, General Morrison?" General Morrison straightened. "Defensive capabilities. If there are hostile alien species out there, humanity needs to be able to protect itself." "Admiral Chen?" "Strategic advantage," Admiral Chen replied without hesitation. "Anything that can ensure humanity's survival and growth in a potentially dangerous galaxy." Zephyros nodded slowly. "I understand." These are natural desires for a species first encountering the greater cosmos. But may I share with you what I have learned about species who prioritize these things above all else? Please, Admiral Chen said, though her tone suggested she was humoring him. They invariably destroy themselves, Zephyros said simply. Not through external threats, but through internal collapse. They become so focused on gaining advantage over others that they forget how to connect with others. They grow powerful but lonely, advanced but isolated. General Morrison crossed his arms. You're saying we shouldn't want to defend ourselves? I am saying that the greatest defense is not a weapon, but an ally. The most powerful technology is not a tool, but understanding. The ultimate strategic advantage is not superiority, but cooperation. Maya stepped forward. He's not just talking about theory. He's seen it happen across the galaxy. Species that chose connection over dominance didn't just survive. They thrived. Admiral Chen studied Zephyros carefully. And you're proposing what exactly? That humanity should abandon technological advancement in favor of storytelling? I am proposing that humanity should embrace its greatest strength, Zephyros replied. Your capacity for empathy, for seeing the universe through eyes other than your own. This is rarer and more valuable than any technology. Dr. Reeves looked frustrated. But surely you can share some practical knowledge with us. Medical advances, engineering principles, and I can? Zephyros said. And I will in time. But not as gifts to be hoarded or weapons to be wielded. As stories to be shared, connections to be fostered, bridges to be built between species. Maya felt the moment balancing on a knife's edge. She could see the delegation struggling with concepts that challenged everything they had expected from first contact. Admiral Chen, Maya said quietly, what if instead of asking what Zephyros can give us, we asked what we can give him? And through him, what we can give to the galaxy? Admiral Chen looked at Maya, then at Zephyros, then back at Maya. For a moment, her calculating expression softened, and Maya caught a glimpse of wonder in her eyes. What would that look like? Admiral Chen asked finally. Zephyros's eyes brightened. It would look like the future I shared with young Maya and Dr. Harrison. A future where humanity becomes the voice that helps the galaxy finally learn to sing in harmony. Tell them the story, Maya urged. Tell them what we could become. Zephyros settled into his storytelling posture, and his voice took on that magical quality that could transport listeners across space and time. As he began to speak, Maya watched the delegation's faces transform from skepticism to wonder to hope. When he finished, the docking bay was silent for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke. That's quite a vision. It's more than a vision, Maya said firmly. It's a choice, and we have to make it now, together. Admiral Chen looked around at her colleagues, then back at Zephyros. What would be our first step? Zephyros smiled, and Maya felt the future shifting toward light. The same first step that every great journey begins with, he said. A single story shared between friends.